Hey guys, Lewis here with website Bytes, and welcome to our first crash course on the new channel. Today we're covering HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language for the smart ones of you out there. HTML is the foundation language used for creating websites essentially. HTML is the language that tells the browser what type of document it needs to load. It tells the browser which certain text is to be formatted in a certain way, which text needs to link, or block elements need to link to other parts of the page. It also tells it things like forms, how to lay out a form, how to create input fields, things like this. And then CSS, which is a cascading style sheet, then tells the HTML at a later date, which we'll cover in another video, how to style those elements and how to make them look nice. If you want blue text, for instance, or if you want a picture to be a certain width, CSS will do that job for you. But that's going to be the next crash course we'll be releasing next week. Today, however, we're fundamentally going to be focusing on HTML and what all the different elements inside of HTML mean and how you can use them to create a website. So the first thing that we want to do is head over to our preferred text editor. If you don't have a text editor, I'll leave a link to the video that we made a little while ago in the description that helps you to set up your computer for web development. So if you're starting from absolute scratch, which I imagine most of you will be watching this, head over to that video. I'll still be here when you get back. It essentially shows you how to download, install Sublime Text along with some plugins for it so that you can work with code a lot nicer. Shows you how to download FileZilla, so eventually you can connect to a server and upload your files, and also XAMPP. So further down the line when we develop PHP, you can run a local server on your machine so that you can develop PHP without a problem. However, skipping over all of that for now, we're going to start in Sublime Text, or any text editor of your choice, and we want to create a new file and save it as an HTML document. Very simple, so file new, and then Control S or file save, and then we want to choose where we're going to save this. So I have created a website folder on my desktop, which is where I want to store and save all my documents for my website. So we'll head into there. This doggo picture we'll come back to a little bit later on, but in the meantime we're just going to save our document as index.html. Index is the main page of the website. Whenever you visit google.co.uk, youtube.com, websitebytes.uk, the first page you will be presented to is index.html. So simply click save, and now we're well on our way already to creating a HTML page. Obviously now it's not going to look much, so if we drag this over to the left and we open it up in the right, let's have a look inside of here. Our document currently has nothing in it. So this on the left is going to be our code. I'll leave the actual website open on the right. And you can see Chrome is quite good in the fact that you can open up any old document in it. So we're simply referencing the index.html file and it's loading it straight up. There's no error messages or anything like that. So we now need to get on and start developing our web page. The first thing that you need to do with an HTML document is declare it as an HTML document. In HTML, the two main things that you're going to see are these two arrow brackets almost. Inside of these brackets are where you're going to declare what element or what character you want to tell the browser to use. So in this one, to start to declare in our HTML document, we're going to put an exclamation mark and then in caps doc type space HTML, and then we'll escape onto a new line. So now whenever the browser looks at this file, it knows exactly what format it needs to be printed out in. So now we can move on to the actual HTML document itself. So we'll open and close some brackets again. We'll type HTML. And then with any tag such as this, you always need a closing tag as well. So we'll open up another bracket, do a backslash, and end it with HTML. So now inside of this this element here, this HTML document, is where we're going to have all of our content. Inside the HTML, you'll have a head tag and a body tag. So again, we'll open some brackets, and then we will close the head. And then we'll also have body, and we will close the body. So each of these has its own purpose. So in the head, I'll just separate these out a bit so we can see them. In the head is where you'll declare things like your title, your description, any CSS files that you want to reference, you'll reference inside of here. And you'll also do some more technical stuff, such as declaring device width or the character set to be used. The only one that we're going to really focus on today, though, is the title. We'll also have a look at some keywords as well. So we'll open up the title tag such as this, and we'll give it a title. So let's call this my website, and then we'll close the title. Now if we save this document, we've made a few changes, so we'll save this document and we'll refresh it. You can now see the title has become my website. Nothing else has changed though, because these are only elements, these aren't content yet. We need to start filling these with content in order to have things displayed on the website. So underneath title, we're going to create a few meta tags. So a meta tag is basically a way of telling the browser or search engines what content's on the page, trying to give it a little bit of description. So if you've ever had a song right on your computer, the metadata for that song would be you'll have a title, you'll have the album art, what artist it's from, all things like this. They're all meta information, right? So the first one that we're going to do is the character set. This basically declares what kind of text it needs to look at and what rules that text needs to follow. So the only one that you're going to need to worry about at the moment is UTF-8, probably one of the most common ones. I'm not going to dive into what that means now. There's information online you can look at if you want to, but just know that that needs to be in there. Another one that we're going to look at is description. So this is where we're going to leave a description about the page, so that when you see it appear on Google, underneath the domain, you'll have a little bit of description. So we'll just say, this is my first website. There's also a keywords tag. However, something I'll talk about in a future video with SEO purposes. Keywords aren't looked at anymore by search engines, so it's kind of a pointless thing to have in there. However, you can put them in there if you want. I'll cover those, as I said, all in a later video. If we save this and refresh again, you'll notice nothing has happened here, because these are meta information. They're not content. They're not going to be displayed on the website. These are simply tags that go along with the file to say to the browser, look, when you have a look at this file, make sure it's using this character set, and if somebody wants a description about this file, this is the text that they're going to see. Okay, so that's the head pretty much sorted out there, which is fantastic. Let's now dive down into some of the actual content, which is exactly what you're here for. So in HTML, you've got heading tags, you've got paragraph tags, you can make bold text, italic text, you can emphasize text, you can make text small, you can strike through some text, you can reference text, you can abbreviate text, blah, 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 blah. We'll cover all of those in this video. The first ones that we're going to cover are the H tags. So H tags are declared as H1. These also need a closing tag. And the H tags can range from H1 all the way down to H5, H6 in some cases. So if we put in heading 1, save this, you can see that heading 1 is printed out in bold. It's going to be the biggest text. And when a search engine searches through this page, the H1 tag is going to have the most weight in terms of what the content on that page is. So it's a good idea with your H1 tag to have it as your page heading. So in this case, we're just going to call it page heading. However, this could be website bytes, learn HTML, CSS, PHP, JavaScript. You can have those in your H tags because they are descriptive. They are most relevant to that page. And as I said, H tags, so you can go all the way from H1 down to H6 or 5. Some browsers support 5, some browsers support 6. And so the H2 tag would be your page subheading, right? And what you'll find with this is it's printed out in a smaller font, as it is less significant as H1. Okay, so again, if we then take it a step further and we have an H3 tag, page subheading, and we close that out. Oh dear, I'm having a nightmare. You can see then again the text is again smaller, and less significant. However, it's still pretty bold. It's still a heading of some kind. So your H tags are your best friends in terms of bold, big text. Obviously, you can style these however you like later on, which we'll cover in the CSS crash course. But today, for HTML, you just need to understand the fundamentals of heading tags and what they're used for. Not everything on your web page is going to be a heading. So this is where P tags come in, which is a paragraph tag. A paragraph tag is used for content primarily. Okay, so again, open and close the P tag. Inside of this P tag is where you're going to write your content. So some information here in regards to the content. Save that, and you'll see that this text is now printed out in a normal format in its standard font size. You can obviously, as I said, change all these font sizes with CSS. We'll cover a little bit of that later on, but that's more of a CSS thing. And P tags are block elements, which means they don't like sharing space. Okay, so if I was to copy and paste in a new one, and we'll just say some more, and refresh, you'll see this has now gone on to another line. So all of these tags here are block elements. They don't like sharing the same line with each other. So instead of this line then printing after this line, it says no, this line wants to take up the entire width of the page, so you're going to have to go on to the next line. If you want text to appear next to each other, you can use spans. So we'll open up a span tag and we'll say this is some inline text, and then we can close the span tag, and then if we were to then open up another one, we can say and some more text here. Save that. And you can see now these are being shown on the same line because span is not a block element, and so they can appear next to each other. However, you saw I put an extra space in there because it will budge those two up. So if I take that space out, you can see it is, oh no, never mind, I've stand corrected. It doesn't, it actually does put the space in for you, which is fantastic. Never knew it actually did that. I've been putting an extra space in for a while now and I don't need to, so never mind. So anyway, they appear next to each other, which is fantastic because this means that later on down the line, if you wanted to change a specific color of just one word, you can wrap it in a span tag, give it a class of green or whatever, and you can change just one text, one letter then. Whereas if it was in a P tag, you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to just change one letter or one word in there. So span tags are very handy. So that's pretty much content. Okay, so that's how you can print out your content. We're going to look at some element attributes now, because each of these obviously is wrapped in its own tags. However, you can nest things inside those tags, just as we've done up here with the description, such as classes. You can give it href, so places to look at. You can give it source, styles, IDs. So the first one that we're going to have a look at is the A tag. Okay, so we'll have the A tag. And then inside of the first one, A tag is an anchor tag. So you can link this to external web addresses. You can link this to internal web addresses. And the way that you do so is given an attribute of href equals and then 2 quotation marks. And inside of here, you're going to put the place that you want to link it to. So in our case, we're going to go to www.google.co.uk. And we'll put a link in here that says visit Google. Save that, refresh, and you can see that it's in fact put it next to the span tag, because an A tag is also a block element, a non-block element. So we'll use a break tag or a line break tag here. If we save that, that's basically going to tell it to go on to the next line. So you'll see a lot of these in this tutorial when we get into some of the later content. So we're pushing the A tag onto a new line here, and when we click on this link, you see it navigates us, well, if it's an external link, so make sure you put HTTP at the start of it. Refresh, and you can see that this now navigates us to Google. Fantastic. One thing you'll probably notice though is if you click on the link, it takes you away from the page you're on and puts you onto Google. We don't really like that. We want it to open in a new tag, so we'll give it a target attribute, and inside the target attribute, we'll give it an underscore blank. So it's basically saying when this link is clicked, look for a blank tab and load it into that. So if a blank tab doesn't exist, it will create one and it will load it into a new tab for us, which is good because then people aren't navigating away from your web page to go and visit another one. Fantastic. So not only can anchor tags link to an external page, but they can also link to another page within your own website. So what we're going to do very quickly is we're going to create a tag with an href of page2.html. We'll close that and we'll say visit another page on this site, and we'll close the a tag, and then inside of here we'll just put a break tag, put it onto a new line. Now note we don't have a page 2 at the moment, so if we refresh and we click onto this, the file's not found because it's trying to look inside the same directory for page 2, which doesn't exist. So quickly, if we make a new file and call it page2.html, this is our page 2, so again starting pretty much from where we started from with this one. However, now when we visit this page, you'll see it will successfully connect into that page, but it won't display anything because there's nothing there yet. So that's very handy. You can connect to other pages within your own website, which is fantastic. Another thing that it does is references a certain area on the page. Going to get into that a little bit later on though, because we'll need a bit more content for that to be illustrated. But fundamentally, A tags fantastic for linking things together. So another one that we're going to have a look at is the image tag. So again, open up the tag, and an image tag can take a source tag, it can take an alt tag, it can take a width tag, height, all these different things. So I'll explain those as we go along. So the source tag is declared as src. So we'll do image src equals, and then inside of these quotation marks, we're going to reference the source as to what we want the image to be called from. So inside of our website folder, you'll probably remember we've got a picture called doggo.jpg, which is what we're going to have a look at. So the source is going to be doggo.jpg. And then the alt tag, every image on the site needs to go with an alt tag. It's not like it breaks if it doesn't have an alt tag, but for SEO purposes, which I'll get into again in a later video, I apologize for keep bringing it up. It's kind of wired into my brain at the moment. But with SEO, you need to describe what the image is. And not only for that, but if the image doesn't load for some reason, the alt tag will be text that fills in where the image was supposed to be. So if for some reason the image breaks on the website, it goes missing or something like this, the link fails, or there's a slow connection, the user who visits the website still has an idea about what that picture was supposed to be. So before we continue, I'm just going to put in another break so that we go into a new line. And the alt tag, a picture of my grandparents' dog. And then we can close out this image tag. Now, one thing you'll notice when I refresh this page is the image is ginormous, right? The actual image dimensions themselves are 5,184 by 3,456. Now, your average 1080p screen obviously is only 1,920 pixels wide. So for displaying this image on the website is it's not great because it zooms the image all the way in. This is where height and width attributes come in. So you can declare both, but if you only declare one of them, it will scale proportionally. So on the image tag, we're going to put a width equals, and in here you can put either a percentage width or you can put a pixel width. So if we say we want it to be 50% width, save that and refresh, you'll see the image now takes up 50% of the screen, and we can resize this and you can see that it always stays to be 50%, which is fantastic. Alternatively, you can give it a pixel width. So if we then say, in fact, we want it to be 100 pixels wide, we want it to have a fixed width, refresh, you can now see that it's going to be 100 pixels wide. We'll take it back to 50% for the time being. And if you were to add also a height attribute. So we say we want it to be 50% wide and 50% high. What you'll see is if we, not 50% high, sorry, 50 pixels high, height, you'll see that it's now not scaling proportionally, okay, because you're giving it both a width to look at and you're giving it a fixed height as well. So a good idea to keep images proportional is to only use one of those attributes. So in this case, we are only going to stick with the width to make sure that it stays only 50% wide, which is fantastic. So that's an image tag. You can link the images tags as well by wrapping it in an A tag. All of these kind of variables can be used with each other, which is fantastic. So that allows you to create some pretty cool websites. I apologize if my voice is getting a little bit croaky. I never taught this much, I don't think. So, put in another break tag. And I apologize if I'm rushing through this as well. I haven't actually done a tutorial like this before, so I hope that it's somewhat easy to follow. All of the code you'll be able to download after the fact over on our website. I'll leave a link to that in the description. So you can go and download the code for this for free, so you can follow along and have a play about with the things yourself. So after the image tags, as I mentioned before with the span tags, these are very handy because you can change text styles inside of a paragraph, okay? So what we're going to have a look at quickly, we'll dive more into this a little bit later on, is we're going to create a P tag, so a paragraph tag. And in here we're going to have, here is som, and then inside of the P tag, we'll create a span, green, and then in the span text exclamation mark. So when we refresh this, you see here is some green text. So the span, being a non-block element, has nested itself very nicely into the P tag, the paragraph tag, and now we want to color that green, right? So this is where the style attribute comes into play. Using the style attribute in line like this isn't generally considered best practice. It is normally a good idea to put styles into a separate CSS file, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to show you that you can use it. So the style tag is going to take two parameters, if you like. So we're going to declare the color, which is the color refers to any of the content. So in this case, the text. We'll put a colon, and then we will say green. Okay. So the span, the style tag in here is going to say, look at the color of the content within this span and set it to green. So if we save this, refresh, you can see this text is now, although it's quite hard to see, is green in its color. Okay, so that's the style tag. You can do a lot more things with this. You can concatenate them with semicolons. So if we put a semicolon here, and then we put font size, and we say 20 pixels. Save that, refresh, you can see it's now bigger as well. Concatenating large amounts of styles inside of the style tag, obviously you can tell it's going to get very messy very quickly, so I do not recommend it at all. However, if you have to, I guess you have to, but you can create a style block itself a little bit later on, which we will cover. Another attribute to have a look at are classes and IDs. Okay, these are two very important attributes to elements, and you'll most commonly see them on divs. Div is a block element in itself, although you can change that later on with some CSS. So a div, think of it as a container, a box. So inside of this box, we want to put some content, and a div is simply div like that, and it needs a closing tag as well. And then inside of here, we can declare some more elements. So we'll say inside of here, we'll have an h4 tag, and we'll say I'm inside a div, and we'll close it. And then we'll have a paragraph tag, and we'll say so am I. Save that, refresh, and you'll see they get printed out as normal. You can't tell they're in a div, but however now we can give this div a class of blue text, we'll say. And then if we just copy this and paste it underneath, you can then have an ID instead, and we'll set the ID to red text. The way that these are referenced are slightly different. In CSS, if you want to change these, a class is referred as dot and then the name, so dot blue text, and an ID is referenced as a hashtag and then red text. So quickly down here leads us on quite nicely onto our next little element we'll have a look at, which is the style tag. So we'll have open style and then we'll close the style out. Inside of here, you can treat this as a CSS file. Okay, so we're going to reference dot blue text in here. So this is CSS syntax now. Okay, so you've got dot as it's a class, so dot blue text, and then you'll have two curly brackets. And inside of here, you can declare your styles. So we'll say color blue for the text, and then for our red text, we'll say hashtag red text, curly brackets, and color red. Okay, at the end of each CSS line you need a semicolon to say this is the end of the line, don't read any further. If we refresh this now, you'll see we've got two divs. You can't tell they're in a div aside from the fact that inside of the blue div the text is blue, and inside of the red div the text is red. Again, you can change loads of different things inside of CSS. We'll cover that in the CSS crash course that's coming out in a little while. But understanding that you can manipulate text or content depending on a div or a block element that it's in is very, very handy when it comes to building bigger websites that have a lot going on. Something we'll cover a little bit later on. But now we're going to look into formatting text. I know, very exciting. So formatting text is a big thing. If you're writing a blog, you want to emphasize certain text, put it in bold, put it in italic. You want to mark some text, you want to strike through some text. You want to show that some text is subscripted, so underneath or above superscripted. Sorry. So I'm just going to pretty much fire through the different types of text formatting you've got. So the first one is when you wrap text in the B tag, which is bold. Okay, there's two ways to do bold. So you can do bold text like this, and there's also another way to do it, which is the strong. So if you want to emphasize something quite a lot, you can put it in some strong tags and say strong text. Close them off. They both need closing tags. Save that, put them in. You see that we've got bold text and strong text. They look exactly the same. However, they are not block elements, so they need breaks in between them in order to go into new lines. So that's very good for writing bold text. Italic text, you've also got two ways of doing this. You've got an I tag, so obviously for italic. Italic, that is how you spell italic, isn't it? Probably it doesn't look right, but we'll go with it. And then end that. So you've got italic text, and you've also got EM or emphasized text as well. So we'll put another line break in, and then EM, this is where it's going to go wrong. Emphasized text. Not great with spellings. If we save that again, you can see also very similar, both on the slant. They've got similar connotations in terms of when the browser reads what type of text it needs to print out, but you can say they look very similar. So mark text. Just wrapped in the mark tags, and you'll see that it's kind of a highlighted text. You can change the highlight later on in CSS, but if you're going through and citing an article or something like that, mark text will be quite good because you can highlight certain parts of the text. Small kind of has it in the name. Small text, regardless of where it is, will make itself small in comparison to the other text that it's being wrapped with. So you can see here it's printed out a lot smaller than the other text that we've got going on here. I am just quickly going to okay, that didn't help. Padding. I'm trying to bring up the bottom a little bit here. We'll just add some more content. Nay bother. So, as I said, so small text is small in comparison to what the other text wrapping it is in. We'll add another line break here. The next one, del or deleted text. So, God damn me, I'm having real trouble trying to spell today. Great. So deleted text is pretty much strike through. Yeah. So instead of taking out text completely, you can just strike through it, tell it that it doesn't need to be indexed or anything like that. You can see actually what we've made an error here in the fact that I haven't closed this small tag out properly, and so you can see the deleted text is still being wrapped inside of that small tag. So that's a good error there, if there is one. So we actually close that properly and refresh. You can see it's gone back to its normal size, but that's a good example as to how things can be wrapped inside of each other. So good job, Lewis. Well done. The next one that we're going to have a look at is inserted text. Obviously, you don't need all of these, but it's a good idea to know of them. So inserted text. I'll put another line break on it. Inserted text is basically underline. So if you deleted some text and then inserted some new one, you could strike through and then underline the next stuff, so people know what's been added, what's been taken. Subscript, if you've ever looked at kind of chemical equations, would be the best thing to describe this as. Is a smaller in comparison to the text that it's next to. So if we next to this put some we just write some text. So this is normal, comma, and then subscript. You'll see what I mean. It puts it on the line, kind of it levels it out to be lower than the rest of the text than it is there. So obviously if you've ever seen like H2O or something like that, the 2 is subscripted. And then on the flip of that, we'll have this is normal, and then we'll also have superscript. We'll put some line breaks on these so that we can see them on new lines. And then superscript, the opposite. So the superscript is above the normal text. So that's pretty much text. Last one that we're going to have a look at is the abbreviation tag. So we are learning about, and then ABBR is the tag that we're going to look at. So ABBR, or abbreviated, and then close out that tag, and then we'll say HTML. And we can give the element a attribute of title, and this is going to be what that is to say properly. So hypertext markup language, and then we'll finish it off with today. So if we save that, refresh, you can see it's now underlined, and if you hover over it, it says what the title is. So if you're writing a big article and you don't want to have to keep typing out the long word that you're trying to speak about, I guess, you can abbreviate it and then give it a title tag, which will tell it, look, print this out, but underline it so people know it's abbreviated. When they hover, give them the full name. So that is pretty much text. They are going to be especially for starting, the only kind of text that you're going to need to know. And I know why the style wasn't working, because we were trying to add it to the closing tag, which was funny. So padding bottom. There we go. That makes it easier, doesn't it? So sorry about this. I'm a bit new to this all tutorials. I'm learning. We're all learning as we progress here. So quotations is a quick one that I'm going to cover. There's two ways to print out quotations, so it's kind of still linked in with text formatting. Let's make a p tag, so a paragraph tag, and then we'll say and then he said, one way to print out quotes is to use the HTML entity for the quote symbol, which is and QUOT semicolon. No way. And then the same again, so QUOT and then we'll end the paragraph tag. So if we save that, print this out. Oh no, he's put now way. And then he said, no way. And you can see the HTML entity themselves are being pulled up here. There's a lot of different entities you can use for the copyright symbols. You've got hyphens, quotation marks, things like this, and symbols. We're not going to cover those. We'll cover those in another video. But so the quotation marks can be printed out like that. Alternatively, you can also print them out using the Q tag for quote. So then, and then he said, and the Q tag we can wrap in, or the quote, sorry, we can wrap in Q tags. No way. And then when we refresh this, you'll see that it will be printed out in exactly the same way, just by using a different syntax. So you'll probably find that with a lot of things with HTML. You can do things one way, you can do them another way. But that's how to print out quotes. I only wanted to cover that one because it's a bit of a weird one, and it also gets you introduced to HTML entities, which, as I said, I will cover again in another video in the future. But yes, entities, non-entities, tags, attributes, fantastic, covered. So we'll move on to some more interesting things now, such as tables, lists, forms. So in a table is a way of laying out certain information on the page. So the way that you declare a table is you open it normally, you close it normally, and then inside of here we're going to have table rows, we're going to have the columns, we're going to have headings, we're going to have the data, everything like this. So to begin with, in a table, the first thing that you'll declare are the headings. Okay, so inside of each table, you'll have a TR or table row, which also needs a closing tag. And then inside of these, the first ones are going to be the headings. In this case, we're going to be doing films and when they were released. Plus 5 points if you can tell me who the director of these films are. It's one director. You'll probably get it from the first one. However, inside of TR, so inside of the table row, to declare the table headings, you need to use the syntax TH. So we're going to say film, and then we're going to close it off. And we're going to show a table of films and the times they were released. So we're going to add another heading called year, right? So they are going to be our two headings, which if I refresh, you can see we've got film and year here now, which is fantastic. And now we want to start adding some content to them. So we're going to create another TR, another table row. We're going to end that table row. And then inside of here, we're going to do a TD, right? So table data. You can add as many as these as you like, and it will just keep listing them down and down and down. I'll show you that in a second. So the first film we're going to add, Pulp Fiction. And then close off the TD tag. And I know for a fact Pulp Fiction was released in 1994. So 1994, and then close the TD tag. Now, if we refresh this, you'll see the film and the year are now starting to be populated. So in the film column, we've got Pulp Fiction, and in the year column, we've got 1999. If I was to swap these around and refresh, you'll see that now 1999 has gone into the film column and the year has been populated with Pulp Fiction. This is because you need to enter the information or the data in the order that you're declaring your headers in, okay? So in this case, obviously we've got film. So the first data item that needs to be in the row is the film title. And then we've got the year it was released as the second heading. So in the table row, the second piece of information that needs to be there is the year of which it was released, okay? So we're just going to copy this and we're going to paste it 2 times, and we're just going to change the names. So another one, Kill Bill. Kill Bill was released in 2003. And then you've got Django Unchained. Is it Django Unchained? Definitely spelled Django wrong there. And that was a quite recent one in 2012. So we'll save that, refresh. And you can see that now our table's starting to be populated with information, which is fantastic. So you've got Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Django Unchained, the years 1994, 2003, 2012, all being listed inside of the table in the order that we've laid out here. You can obviously wrap these in links if you wanted to. So a good one that we can add here, if we add another table heading and we call it link, okay? When we refresh this, link obviously isn't going to have anything populated because inside of each row there is no third element, right? However, if we go in, we add another element, another table data, and we go over to Pulp Fiction, IMDb. Oh dear, IMDb. And we'd be awkward now if the dates are wrong, wouldn't it? So going back to earlier on, we can use the A tag. So A tag, we can wrap it in an href and we can give it a link to this. We can then close off the A tag and we can say link. We'll save that, refresh, and you can now see inside of link we have, oh, I'm going to rename that from link to IMDb. You can see that we now have an IMDb link. If we were to click onto that, it's going to take us onto the Pulp Fiction page, of which we've just linked to. Again, you can put target blank in there if you want it to open into a new page. So just for example, we'll get the Kill Bill IMDb title. We'll just copy that into all 3 and change the URL. So we've got this one, and then we've also got Django Unchained. Fantastic. So if we refresh this now, you can see we've got our third column, and we've got links to the Pulp Fiction page, we've got links to the Kill Bill page, and we've got links to the Django Unchained page, which is brilliant. So that's tables. You can style them again with CSS. I'll cover that in another video. But fundamentally, tables are a very useful tool for laying out information. You'll probably read somewhere online, if you've been reading up about tables, that they're starting to be a bit obsolete and there's better ways of laying things out. Disagree. Tables are still useful for quite a few things, especially in a case like this when you're going to be listing big amounts of information, lots of columns, and you want everything to stay formatted nicely, not only on the page but also in the code. This is a brilliant way of doing so. So tables, brilliant bit of kit there. Moving on from tables, we're going to look at lists. So in HTML, you've got an ordered list and an unordered list. First one we'll have a look at is an unordered list, which is declared as UL. And we'll close out the UL tag. And then inside of here, you'll use LI, a list item, to declare a list item. So LI in the tag here. For an example of the unordered list and the ordered list, I'm going to list 3 countries and their population in terms of size, right? So we've got the United Kingdom. That's an obvious one that's going in there. United Kingdom, and then you've got to close out the list item tag. Another list item would be the United States of America for the US viewers out there. Another one that we're going to look at will be Canada. Okay, so we'll leave those 3 in there. We'll save that, and if we refresh this page now, you can see we've got a nice little list here with bullet points listing the 3 list items that we've put in there, which is brilliant. So we've opened up a UL tag. Inside of that UL tag, we've listed 3 list items, but obviously they're not in order in terms of size of population. So if we go on to our next one, we've got OL, which is an ordered list. And the difference that you'll see between these two is obviously these have bullet points, an ordered list will have numbers instead. So the only thing that changes between the 2 lists are the UL tag and the OL tag. So the UL tag, obviously unordered list, OL tag, ordered list. So we'll print out a list item in here, and the country with the biggest population, probably by no surprise, is the United States of America. And then we'll close off the LI tag. The next one, believe it or not, is the United Kingdom at the time of this recording. And then the third one is Canada. So we've got our unordered list with the 3 items. We've now got an ordered list with the 3 items. If we refresh this, you can see that our unordered list with the bullet points has now been moved into an ordered list with numbers to show which order they're in, I guess. It's probably a good explanation of that. Now, lists obviously can be handy for quite a few things. They can be handy for obviously listing information. You can have rankings with them, maybe if you're building a website that's got users involved. Points, you can rank them on points, all that kind of cool stuff. But that's the fundamentals of links. That's how they work. Not links, sorry. Lists, that's how they work. And you can add an unlimited amount of list items as well. So if I was to just copy this for pure example and paste this in 3 more times, you'll find that it will just keep going and going and going, right? So it will just keep growing depending on how many lists, links you want to put in there. So useful tool again. One of the last things we're going to have a look at here is a form. Okay, well, there's 2 more things I want to cover. I'm going to cover forms and iframes. So forms, very simple. Wrap it in a form tag such as, and then close it out. So inside of a form tag, obviously everyone has used a form before, whether it be paper based on the computer when you fill in any details on a game or something like this. Forms, very easy way of capturing information for people, right? So inside of a form, you'll have your inputs, you'll have labels, you'll have submit buttons, you'll have different types of inputs, such as select box, radio buttons, text inputs, all that kind of good stuff. The first thing you'll want to put in a form is a label of some kind, okay? So we're going to put in a label for a name field, and a label needs closing out, so /label, and then you can follow it by an input tag. An input tag doesn't need closing out, okay? If I save this and just refresh, you'll see that that's printed out quite nicely here. However, should this form eventually be submitted, one thing I should note as well is with HTML you can't, there's no way of processing the form. That is a JavaScript or PHP side of things, which obviously I'll cover in the later video. However, in HTML, the language is predominantly used to lay out the form, define the attributes, and then feed that information to the scripts, right? So in order for this input field to be recognized as the name, you want to give it a name attribute, but as well as that, you want to tell it what type of information is going to be input. And then you can also give them, the users, a bit of an example as to what to put in that form or that input. So The first one that we're going to have a look at is type. This type is going to be a text type, so this is kind of a validation step, which we'll cover in another video again later on. I'm find myself saying that quite a lot at the moment, but all is to come in future videos. So input type text. The name of this element is the name, right? So the user's name. So I should probably give that a different name because that's going to get confusing. The name is name, right? You'll see what I mean. It will change later on, and then you can put a placeholder in. Okay, so you can put an example basically of what the user should put in. So we'll say John Doe, a nice classic name, and then inside of here you'll now see John Doe has become the placeholder. As soon as you start typing, it will disappear, but John Doe stays there. He's a trusty friend of ours, good old John Doe. And if I right click and inspect this, you will see that we've got a name, a text type on it. That's a tool that I'll cover in the future because that's very handy. One thing I will note though is as soon as you now add in another one, so we'll add in a label for let's have a look at email. So as soon as you add in an email tag, we'll say input. The type for this one is going to be email. The name, here's where it's going to change. The name is going to be email. And the placeholder will set to john@doe.com. Okay, let's save this, refresh, and then, oh look, they're now in line. That's because labels and inputs are not block elements. So going back to how we said before, with these being block elements pushing each other onto a new line, and then spans not being block elements, being inline elements, and continuing along the same line, that's what a form will do unless you tell it not to. So a very easy way to conquer this is by wrapping it in a div. As mentioned earlier, divs are block elements, so they tend not to stay along the same line. So we'll wrap that one in a div. We will wrap this one into a div as well. And obviously you can give these divs classes if you want to, so that you can style them a little bit later on. But if we refresh now, you can see they're breaking onto a new line. Obviously they're quite bunched up at the moment, so we'll just separate them with a line break. However, you can also solve that with padding, margins, things like this, which again is for the CSS crash course. But for the time being, we'll just look at them as this. So we're going to add another area. This one will ask for the telephone. The input type will be number. The name will be telephone. And the placeholder will be 01234, and then 5678890. Right, it's a standard dummy contact number. So you now see we've got a telephone number, and with it being a number, you get these little gizmos here. You can change the input. Not very handy for telephone, but it does give it a little format. And obviously once people try typing text in, you can't, right? You can only type numbers, which is what you want for a telephone, because I don't know of any telephones that have any text in them. So that's three main ones. You've got name or text, email, and number, right? Very handy. However, you've also got other things like select as well. So if we put in another line break, a select thing. Let me just create the div quickly to wrap it in, and the label. Let's give it a label of topic. So the select topic is, or the select element either, you can list options in it, and when the form's submitted, the selected option will be thrown as the value. Okay, so the way that you declare it is inside of the brackets, so select, and then we'll give this a name of topic. End it. The select obviously needs an end, and then inside of here you can create an option tag which will need a closing, and then inside of these option tags you'll create your your options, right? Your list of different things people can choose. So in here, we're going to have the topic of whatever this message is going to be, just a hello. And then let's just copy that onto some new lines here. And the next one will be, I have a question. And let's make the third one, can I suggest an improvement? Improvement. I'm missing an E. So with, let me just make that a bit thinner there. So if we were to refresh this now, you can see we've got our drop down and you can select things, which is brilliant. So you can select a different topic. However, in order for these to be submitted with the form, you're going to need to give the option of value. So inside of here, you can just abbreviate things. You'll see these once the form's been submitted, basically. So we'll give that one a value of hello. We'll have this one as a suggestion. And we'll have this one as improvement. Okay, you won't see any difference on the front end. However, when the form's submitted, depending on which one was selected, this will be the value that would be passed along with it. Okay, so topics, you've got maybe you can select genders, maybe you could select a different type of car, you could select, well, anything really with a tag like that. So that's the select tag, very handy. The last one that we're really going to take a look at here is the text area. So obviously, in order for you to send the message, you're going to want to type the message in the first place. That made no sense, but we're going to carry on anyway. So, so we'll give it a label, obviously, of message. And then with a message, obviously, we don't want the box to be this kind of size, a normal standard input size. So we're going to use a different tag, which is text area, right? The text area tag needs a closing one, and we'll give it a name of message. Okay. So refresh this now, and you can see we've got a big box that we can use to input our message into, and you can declare how big you want this box to be. Obviously, you can resize it now, but when it starts off, it's only going to be this big. Okay, so you can do that through defining rows and columns, right? So let's say we want it to be 10 rows and 20 columns. We'll save that, we'll refresh, and you can see that it's now enlarged the size of this. Okay, I think it's actually only column. Is it column like that? No. So it's changed the size of it. You can declare in CSS a little bit later on that you don't want it to be able to be resized, and this way you can give it fixed heights with pixels, which is handy if you're one of those people you like to get things bang on. Obviously, as I say, I'll cover that in another video, but the rows and the columns is a very handy way of saying, look, give them this many lines to type on and make it appear this wide. So very handy. Once the users input all their information, they're going to need to send it somehow. So this is where button comes into play, but no normal button. So again, we're going to wrap this into a div just because for the sake of continuity throughout the form. Normally, you can put a button in here. Okay, we'll save, and a button comes in here. Let's just say submit, right? So you see a button, but for form, this isn't going to work because you need it as an input. Okay, so we'll have an input. The type is going to be a submit type. The name we'll also call submit, and then we can give it a value of submit. So the value is what's going to be shown on the web page. If I refresh, you can see, oops, I've spelt submit wrong there. Refresh. So we've got a button, looks exactly the same, but it's actually an input, right? with the type of submit, the name of submit, and the value. So the value is what we're seeing here on this front page. You can see this has got capital S, the other two have lowercase s's. So this is what we are seeing on the front end of it. So brilliant. This is our form. So once the users filled it all out, they'll click submit. Obviously here you can see that it's printing out the information up the top here. But if we just take that away, once you're confident with PHP and some JavaScript, you can learn how to take those inputs and send them to an email address or something like that, which can be very handy. Speaking of, if you have any problems with any of this, you can head over to our contact page on the website, bytes.uk website, and you can get in touch with us on there. That almost didn't come out. And we build the form on there in a very similar way. So if you're savvy, you can go into the source code and you can have a look, see how that's laid out, which will be pretty good. So the last thing, I don't know how long we've been going for, pretty long. But the last thing that I'm going to have a look at is iframe. Okay, so an iframe, I thought I'd just chuck this one in there because it's quite an interesting one. An iframe allows you to show a web page or another HTML document inside of an HTML document. Whoa, I know it's getting a little advanced. Just bear with me, it's getting next level right now. So an iframe tag needs a closing tag, so we'll declare iframe and then we will close it. And the attributes we're going to give the iframe are going to show us what HTML page to look at, right? So it can be a page on your own website. However, we're going to take it a step further and we're going to give it an src tag. So if you remember from earlier, src is a source tag. And we're going to have a look at https://www.en.wikipedia.org/wiki/main_page. Okay, so /org. We refresh this now. You can see it's loaded in, right? But we can't actually really see what's going on here, right? So we need to give it a height and a width attribute in order for it to be workable, right? So we're going to give it a height. We're going to give it a height of 250 pixels, and we're going to give it a width of 50 pixels. 50%, sorry. So we're mixing it up a little bit here. We're giving it a fixed height of pixels, and then we're giving it a dynamic width of 50%. Okay, so we refresh this now. It actually has problems connecting to that. So let's just get a new domain to connect to. And the Google one, okay, so I've actually tried this before. The Google one doesn't actually work a great deal because this is only looking at the top left here, which obviously is white space. So it's not too handy. Let's have a look, see if we can actually grab the Wikipedia page itself. And then put it in there. There we go. Right, so the width is 50%, same as the image, and the height is fixed. So if we were to resize this, you can see that's always going to stay at 50%. Right, so iframe is very handy for embedding additional web pages somewhere. Let's just make that 100% width, just so that we can see it. Beautiful. And obviously you can navigate the page exactly how you would normally. So that's HTML. Welcome to the start of web development. HTML, as I said before, is the fundamental language you need to know in order to make websites. It's how you define content. It's how you define areas of content and links, and how you build forms such as this and insert images. So it is a fundamental language that you need to understand. Thanks for following along if you've gotten this far in the video. I apologise if it was very quick. I hope you can go back and watch some bits if you missed any. I'm new to this, so I'm hoping that we can grow and learn together, and I'll learn to slow down. But if you're unsure of any of the code or anything like this, you're not quite sure how to syntax anything, you can download this code that we've made in this video. I'll go through and I'll comment it all as well, so you understand what's what. And I'll leave a link to the download of that code in the description below. And I'll insert the doggo image in there as well, so you can use that. But so if you're unsure, head to the courses page on our website. As I said, I'll leave a link to it down below, and you can download the project files, follow along, or watch back the video. I probably should have said that at the start actually, but you can watch back the video. Just have a play about with it. Have a play about with divs and getting more information inside of the divs, different content, building your own form, trying to style some content. And next week we'll be releasing our CSS crash course, which will be focused on styling the content. So obviously this is great, you've got it all in here, but no website really looks like this, does it? So we're going to go through and we're going to style some elements with CSS next week, and hopefully then that will start setting you on your course to creating some fantastic looking websites. So I apologize about the length of this as well. It's gone on quite a while, but I hope that I've been able to cover pretty much everything. Obviously there are still some bits that I haven't covered, probably because I've forgotten about them. So I'll leave a link to the W3 Schools docs down below as well, for the HTML language, where you'll be able to pick up some more information. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more crash courses coming out and project videos in the future. For the time being though, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodaloo.